welcome to all of you back from lunch. And especially a warm welcome to our panel. We have them here. I'd like to present you. I'd like to present Peter Örn. Yeah? He's an independent management consulting professional from Sweden. We have Kristina Mårtensson. We have heard her before today, the program manager of Nordic Built Cities. And then we have Hanna Rehling. She is a project manager for Dragør municipality in Denmark. We have Beasley here, who is the managing director of HafenCity Hamburg. Yeah. Yep. And Larry Beasley from Canada, distinguished practice professor of planning. A lot of P's. Yeah. So welcome.
3P.
The theme for this discussion will be Nordic solutions to global challenges. How do we contribute in practice? But like the rest of the day, it's up to you to get the most out of it. So I hope you will give questions and participate as much as you can, because I know that these guys here have heads and hearts full of a lot of knowledge and a lot of things about livable, smart, sustainable cities. And they can talk for 45 minutes, but I think use the chance to give them some questions. Right? To kick this off, I would like to share with us your vision, your what if for future livable, smart and sustainable cities. And Kristina Mårtensson, will you be the first one to take the what if approach?
Yes. Well, I would like to say that I have a dream. I'm thinking that when I am in 2020 or 2030, I can look back to the years of 2015 and 16, and I can see that the solutions that came forward in this Nordic Built Cities Challenge came reality. And not only that the word was spread all over the globe about these solutions, and all the finalists of this competition back then were now known all over the globe for their expertise and knowledge in how to build sustainable cities. And I feel a bit really proud. Yeah.
Great. That was a dream from Kristina. Thank you. And then Peter, will you be the next one?
I have a dream. A nightmare dream, to be true. Because what if climate change is a reality that can't be disputed? What if that the goal of 2 degrees is a floor and not a ceiling? And that climate change will be the tremendous challenge that our generation leaves to the future, not generation, but generations to come. With floods, droughts, extreme heat waves, rainstorms, and hundreds of millions of refugees trying to find a place where it's possible to live. And what if the global population will be 10 billion people, 2/3 of them living in fast, rapid-growing cities, mega-cities, hyper-cities, and they will make a huge ecological footprint. But what if the cities are not only the problem, but they could also be part of the solution? And when I've listened to you this morning, I felt the nightmare disappear, because I can see that there are chances and there are examples of making cities part of the solutions. So what if the Nordic cities, as Kristina said, can take the lead? And we can do it by visionary leadership, a holistic perspective, and we can do it by trying to cross-border collaboration between public, private sectors and civil societies, authorities, everywhere. And if we can do that together with people, not like a top-down, but bottom-up, where we include people and they include us and you as city planners and leaders. What if I can have another dream tomorrow?
2 dreams starting with a nightmare. And then now you, Hanna.
No?
I can hear you. Can you hear her?
Yes?
Yeah?
Good.
Mic is on? Okay.
I would like to say, what if we keep our focus in Nordic on what we are already good at, and not get distracted by too many other agendas? Not doing more, but doing it better. What I mean is keeping a pride in our, what I would call, integrated democratic process for urban planning and design in a modern complex world. When I worked as a private consultant dealing with climate adaptation and rainwater, I experienced that we are at our best when we work in interdisciplinary teams. These are teams that combine professionals from various fields of sustainable and smart innovations and technologies with a professional approach to citizens' involvement, planning, and the knowledge of human scale in city planning. When we work with all this, we get the best out of it. And then we are really good in delivering simple solutions for our complex cities. I believe we can show the world methods by walking the talk and showing it off. One of the biggest threats to our unique position in the Nordic is our own geography, defined by small countries and cities. I think that creating more flexible regions and clusters working across towns, across municipalities, and across countries in the Nordic will give us a stronger position globally in the long run. So larger regions with more cooperation will be more effective, innovative, breed new companies, and be more diverse. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanna. It's about doing it smarter, doing it better, all the way. And you, Gieselher?
Yeah, I will concentrate perhaps only on one aspect, which is caused by economic and technology development. My assertion is that under spatial aspects, shops, restaurants, leisure institutions, cultural institutions, they have a mutual network, a mutual supporting in a network. And now the question, what if 75% of all shops are missing? People go into the internet, they go online, and they shop online. So there is no need anymore, on the first view, for shops. And when the shops are missing in the cities, what about then the other institutions, retail and showrooms, for instance? What is about restaurants? What is about theaters, cinemas, and so on? Are they still needed in a centralized situation, or is there a development towards a decentralized situation? Do we have to rethink or perhaps to redesign our concepts of the centers of cities? Since we dream, of course, my dream is that this urbanity, which is connected with this mutual supporting network of all the different institutions I named, will be even in 20 or 30 years existing and will be a hotspot for the social activities of a society.
Thank you, Gieselher. About decentralization.
Yeah.
Wide spread. Larry.
Well, I start with, what if our citizens actually preferred a sustainable lifestyle? You might wonder why I asked that. The fact is that people in this room are a tiny minority in your interest in living a sustainable lifestyle. In my country, 65% of my citizens prefer to live an unsustainable lifestyle. They like it. They love it. In America, 75%. Even in your part of the world, where you have a much stronger interest in sustainability, I bet you it's still about 55%. Even in other places in Northern Europe, it's over 50% that the citizens are not buying into our ideas. What I'm trying to say is that we seem to have a blindness when we innovate. We have some of the most innovative ideas, and I'm sure, and we've been hearing them this morning, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of them. But each one of those ideas, in my experience, has to be put through a sieve of how is it going to perform from the point of view of consumers who every day create the culture, the economy in which we live. It's turning out that even in the most demonic societies that you can no longer tell people what to do and how to live. They will find a way to live the way they wish to live. And so what it means is that we have to take every inventive solution that we come up with for a more sustainable city, and we have to redesign it yet a third time or reinvent it to be not only sustainable but also popular. And not only has it to be popular, it has to be more popular than the unsustainable solutions that people are now spending most of their money on most of their time. I'll give you just a little indication of how hard that is. Let's talk about the car. Everywhere in the world, when people get wealthier, they go for personal private mobility first, even before they go for good housing. In India, in China, elsewhere, the growth of the demand for the car in its current very unsustainable form is a big, huge growth curve. Even in the most progressive societies, I would put the Netherlands in that society, there is still growth in car ownership, not a decline in car ownership. That's just a tiny indication. So if we say we want to have a sustainable active mobility, then we've got to put it through the sieve also of the consumer. What's that going to look like for an average consumer? Not a person like you who's knowledgeable and interested. You're what I call the cognoscanti. You're the clever people that have thought this through. What happens to the average citizen who's just trying to get to work, who's just trying to get home from work, who's just trying to take their children where they need to take them? How do we invent mobility solutions that they will prefer? And then you take that across all of the issues of sustainable cities, and you find that it's not good enough to have an innovative idea. You've got to have a popular, innovative idea.
Wow, popularity of sustainability. That's what we also need to work with. Right? Now, we have to go to today's theme.
May I just comment on that very short, saying I think that the strength with this initiative, Nordic cities, is that it links holistic and sustainable solutions to livable cities and attractive cities and smart cities. So I think that is a way in itself to meet what you say, Larry. And I sometimes when I wake up in the night after my nightmares, I sometimes can figure out it's not only people in this room, but there is a growing movement among consumers and even among business leaders that we have to focus on sustainability. It's hopeful, but it's not really there at this time, but it's hopeful. And then I can sleep again.
You can go to sleep again.
I go to sleep again.
Okay. Well, now then, Peter, thank you. We'll go to today's theme. Nordic solutions to global challenges. How do we contribute in practice? And I'd like all of you once again to give your comments on that. What is, in your opinion, the most burning platforms? What should we address first? And Gieselher, maybe you're the one to start this one.
Oh, yeah, that's a difficult question because burning questions, I think we have 100 at least. 200 perhaps burning questions because a variety of aspects which influence the new kind of building cities is so broad. So, but one main aspect Larry touched is mobility. And mobility is to differentiate from the use of different transport modes. Mobility can be very climate friendly, didn't we say? Mobility can be very harmful for it. But what is true is that everybody wants to be mobile. That's a situation which is given. We can think whether it's good or bad, but it is a situation which is given. And the demand for mobility will increase, not only worldwide, but even in the cities itself, I suppose mobility demand will increase. So how, and this is a question then, how can we shift the mobility demand to a different structure of supply of mobility modes, let me say, which then in the end is not only good for the climate, but is efficient with respect to the use of land, for instance, which is always limited within the city, which is of course climate friendly, and which is socially acceptable as well, which does not divide, for instance, we had one of the projects where it was said the road divides the project region. Yeah, how can we bring a road into a situation that it serves for mobility on the one hand, but serves as a public land as well, where people can meet and children can play on? It's only one burning question.
That was one of the burning questions. Thank you, Gieselher. And Hanna?
I think I would like to continue with mobility, because we work a lot with mobility in our cities and that we should make them dense. But I'm always wondering about what is outside the most dense cities that we're working with. A lot of people also live in less urbanized areas, and how can we make this place sustainable with mobility, because it's not so easy to feed it with public transport, etc. So, yeah.
Thank you, Hanna. Kristina?
Well, as Gisela here so wisely said, I mean, burning questions and huge challenges are many. But if I should pick one that is very well on top of the news in my country, Sweden also, it would be how we could handle immigration and accelerating urbanization at the same time as we make the cities more inclusive, open, democratic, and offers also good places for people to live and thrive. And I think that the Malmö competition actually is in a way, in a Swedish perspective, a bit political also, because it raises the question about affordable living. When we build new or when we renovate the existing buildings, how could we also be inclusive in the way that we do that? Yeah. So it is very much a perspective of openness and democratic, and to face the situation that we have with people moving, and we have a global world. And I think that what is happening now with Syria and so on, this is only the first thing that we see. I think that we will see more of these things happening, and we must be able to handle that in a good and democratic way.
Yeah. These are huge issues, and we are really up in the helicopter, and that's great right now. Come on, and let's Larry.
Me?
Yeah, that's you, Larry.
Well, I think one of the most burning issues is still the simple question of what performance really makes a carbon neutral, truly sustainable city. And what I think we have innovation happening on many fronts in many different aspects. But someone asked a question this morning about the holistic overall solutions on things. And there's where we haven't yet anywhere in the world put everything together into a message, or what I might call a simple formula for a sustainable city. You see, we have probably 30 years to make our cities pervasively sustainable, because we're already starting to see climate change. We're going to see dramatic climate change. I just recently finished a book called Eco-Design, and we did some research on what is happening with climate change, and it's just beginning. Your nightmare is likely. What we used to think was going to happen by the 22nd century is going to happen in 25 years, and that's going to get worse. So we have to holistically think of sustainability of cities. And nowhere in the world do we know how to do that. The one thing you have, and I haven't worked here a lot, but I've watched you a lot. And in fact, you may not know this, but people around the world watch you in this part of the world, because you right now have some of the most sustainable solutions that are built. And it seems to me there's two things about it which makes your contribution very important. One is you seem to know how to implement sustainable solutions. You know, everyone's got ideas. Everyone's drawn the pictures. Everyone's written the books. But it's the ideas that are on the ground that someone in another part of the world can point to that are really, really important. And second thing is you seem to, more often than other cultures, think holistically about those. Even this competition, you're urging people to think cross-disciplinary. You're urging people to even think cross-countries, for God's sakes. But that tendency to look more holistically at the problem is something that the world looks to you to do. Your problem is you've already got a high bar. And almost any typical urban solution that you would come up with, that I would say elsewhere in the world would be a pretty interesting one, it won't fare well with some of your greatest ones. So you must look at your greatest examples. The example in Malmö, the example examples in Stockholm, Copenhagen. And you have to take those examples and identify what does represent the next step up, which is why I think this is a very innovative framework among your countries to really ask and answer that question. And when you answer that question, it will be a new answer to the world. It won't be just a continuation of the discussion. It will be a standard that the world can then start to aspire to. I work all over the world, and I can tell you that people in less advantaged cultures and intellectually less advantaged societies really look to those examples first and foremost, that they can take to their politicians and say, if they can do it there, why can't we do it here? And I think that's an amazing contribution that you have to make in this part of the world, and one that the whole world is looking to you to make. You are in the vanguard, but you got to stay there.
You got to stay there. So that's to Kristina's dream.
Yeah.
Yeah?
My dream.
We could go there. Peter, you be the last one.
Well, I think I will follow what you just said, that when I arrived here this morning and I saw all of you coming into the doors trying to see how to register and what to do with all these, I thought you are really the leaders of the necessary transformation. I'm not saying that you own all the decisions, but as Larry said, you have a key role in making those projects, those plans built on holistic perspective and all that, into reality. And when I heard your presentations this morning, and I've read them because we are all part of the jury that have elected you, I heard that you are discussing a few of the really burning questions. How to adapt to the climate change, how to transform old parts of our cities to livable, attractive parts, and the burning question, how to make urban space and take care of all the things, the factors that make people want to live in cities, where they can feel safe, where they can meet other people, where they are creative, climate, and all that. So you are the leaders of that transformation. There was a lack of some things in your projects that we heard this morning. Perhaps it was just I heard the wrong thing. I thought I heard there's a lack of time frame in your projects. I think you have to push the decision makers to really put in a time schedule. When should the decisions be made? When should this be into reality? And perhaps also there's a lack of financial resources in some of the projects. So you have to push the decision makers to make their projects attractive, not only for public finance, but also private finance, and see if there is a possibility to make combinations of that. You have already thought of that, of course, but I mention it just in case you can use it when you talk to the decision makers. But you have really a key role, and that's why it was so good to be here today. I can take 3 more coffees and sleep well.
It's good that you can sleep
For one night at least.
But Peter, that was a hidden obligation, what you said. Very friendly words, that's true, but it is up to the audience, to the participants of the competitions, of course, but even more in your professional surroundings, just to do it. Just to do it. To push other people, but to do it on your own. Because this is one aspect.
And you have, what you have done in Hamburg is tremendous examples of just to do it. So perhaps you should give us some view of how to do it.
How to do it, yeah, okay. For the next 1.5 hours, you get a specific lecture about the procedures in the HafenCity development. Okay, you are all invited to come to Hamburg. Give me a date, and then, of course, I will show you how we did it, because it's a very complex process.
24th of December, we all will be.
Okay, if you come, as Nordic people come on the 24th of December to Hamburg, I am there.
Okay, we keep that date in
Yeah,
mind.
okay, but we didn't say which year.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, now it's your chance actually to give your questions to these clever guys here, to pick their brains for the next half an hour or so. I have got some questions from Conference and other places, but actually it would be still great if you have questions for the panel.
And while I think I would like to add something, especially as a comment to what Peter said for some time ago, and that I really would like to underline to all that are interested to compete in these 6 competitions, and that is that all these 6 cities, they are so committed. They gave excellent presentations of their subject, but they didn't say that we are super, super committed to implement the solutions, because I know that they are. Because this has been one of the things that we have worked on a lot in all 6 cities, that they are really willing to see your solutions and to do something with them. So in my dream is not so very dreamish. I think it will be a reality that in 2020 or 2030 I can fly over to Iceland and go to Koppavogur and I will see something very new there, and so on. And that is something that I also think is very unique when you look at 6 different competitions in one context. That it will not end with a super nice design only, it will be something. They are committed, yes.
And we can all walk together over the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. Larry, you would like to add a comment?
Well, also the nature of the preferred projects that we have before us now and that you're all thinking about how you'd participate in. One thing to keep in mind is that the highly dense core urban solutions for sustainability have actually been worked out in many parts of the world quite well. What hasn't been worked out very well is the great majority of modern city building, which is in the lower scale suburban parts of cities. And what I really like about the competition entries who are still on the table here is that they are looking at ways that what I would say average people could live in the future. And I'm talking about families with children and typical households, the way that they would live in the future. Because those are the households right now that are living what is clearly the most unsustainable form of modern living. And those are the households with also the most ability to choose those unsustainable forms, financially and otherwise, and culturally that are predisposed to those things. So by coming up with alternatives that are way more sustainable, but also more attractive to live from the point of view of lifestyle, I think you're really going to set the pace for the way suburbanization happens. In fact, I don't even use the word suburbs anymore. It's a very negative word. I use post-urbs because this is how most modern cities are growing. Yes, they're growing at the core, but all over the world, what is really growing is that very low scale, one-dimensional, car-oriented pattern. And what many of you are asking, for those same consumers, is there a little bit like a bigger, denser scale? Is there a walkable approach? And is there a way that you can add sustainable utilities into that equation and have them work? And I think that's very smart for this competition.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Tore Borten. I'm a real estate developer in Norway, working on smart and healthy real estate development. I'm a little bit concerned about, or wanted the panel to discuss a little bit the social sustainability of what we are building is for people, and we want people-friendly neighborhoods, and address not only the technical solution or the mobility solution, but actually how does these development interact and become a social impact factor contributing to the life of not just the people who move in, but the people who live in the neighborhood. If you can give some comments. I think Larry is a little bit starting to go into that discussion. Thank you.
Who would like to answer that? Larry?
I can start.
Yeah, you can start.
Well, I think it's the biggest question. Because in a free society, you're going to build what consumers want. They're going to consume what they prefer. And that's not going to happen until we design places that are highly livable. The one good thing I can tell you from all over the world is that the concept of neighborhood is alive and well in the hearts and minds of most people. We thought it was all going to die with high technology and all that. It turns out that it's maybe even healthier now because of all that high technology. But when we redesigned Vancouver, back starting in the early 90s, to target new consumer groups, literally we had to take apart every single dimension. What is it like to live at high density? Well, that's one good question, because most high density is pretty horrible. Even some of the images we saw today were still not all that good. But we had to find really attractive forms of that higher density. Then you add children at higher density. And you also have another whole set of things that have to be built into the products in order for them to be attractive to families with children. Then you add active mobility, when the car is something that, not just to get you around, by the way, it determines your image in the world. And does the bus give you the same image? And so you have to start thinking about what are the things about active mobility that could deliver on that emotional level. We found, for example, that it is more, you feel better, and it is more popular to walk your child to school and walk on to work, but you don't get that same hit just with going on transit. So we developed proximity as one of our biggest themes for actual development, so that we can take the number of trips that you walk and make it a much higher number. And then people say, I'm healthy. You're unhealthy, you drive your car, I'm healthy. And that we found at an emotional level was as powerful as, I drive a Mercedes and you just drive a Ford, right? That was that aspect. So you have to take every single aspect of sustainable living, and you have to think about how to also convert it to what the consumer will want, so that a developer will build it. I've been a developer as well as a government official, and so that a consumer will buy it.
Yeah, perhaps can we stick with this question, because
there's more to this question, probably.
Because it's very interesting.
Okay, then I think Peter was.
Peter was. Sorry, I can wait for you.
Thank you.
So
I'm not in a hurry, please.
Oh, okay, I'm in a hurry. With HafenCity, now the example of HafenCity, two aspects. The one aspect is, how can we influence the population coming to a new area in this case. And in HafenCity we have the good chance that the city is owner of most of the land. So we have a process where we sell the premises with a concept. We say, okay, we want to have a mixed-use concept, but this is not very innovative because everybody wants to have a mixed-use concept. But we say more. We want to have offers from the real estate industry where they say, not only say, okay, we want to have apartments, that is simple, but we want to have offers with apartments for students, with apartments for families, affordable housing, of course. What about seniors? What about people who are disabled, for instance? What is this mixture in this concept? And who are the institutions which have to be in the process of developing a house or developing a quarter? That's the one aspect. That is simple. The other aspect is even more challenging. It's really a challenge. If you have the people there, how can you bring the people to participate in the development of their quarter? How can you do it? Okay, we have in HafenCity, again this example, we have the situation that the pioneers, how they say, formed an association on a private volunteer base. This worked for 5 years in a good way. Nowadays, the pioneers are not anymore the pioneers, but we have about 2,000 people living in this area. How can you attract the new residents to participate in these institutions? And now we have the first situation where this association doesn't work anymore in this kind, which was at the beginning a very good situation, let me say. Now we have to ask, how can we institutionalize, no, that's not English, no? How can we make an institution which then is a part which has the financing and which has the people working in it. So we decided that every investor has to pay a special amount of money in future time to newly built association so that this institution has a financial base. And whenever you have a situation, a pot of money, let me say, then the people will come and then will decide upon the distribution of this money. And so this may be, under social aspects, a way which perhaps in 5 or 10 years can be then produced as an innovative example from HafenCity and can be exported to other parts of the world, perhaps to the Nordic countries as well.
Thank you, Peter. Peter, did you have a short remark?
I can wait for next question.
Can I just have a short remark? I'm so happy that this question came up here, because maybe it's not been that obvious, but actually into the core of each of these 6 competitions, of course, there are human beings and people. So it's really a lot of clever knowledge and solutions when it comes to making people feel good and create attractiveness. That is all about it. And if you look into the competition programs of these 6, you can see it there also very clearly, of course. Humans are in the center.
Thank you, Kristina. Another question up there, or?
Yeah, hi. Just maybe a quick comment. My name is Ken Dooley. I work in Helsinki. From the previous, the Nordic Builds Challenge, the first one, we had an event in Helsinki where I was a finalist of one of the final teams, and we had a chat, the 4 teams afterwards. And it is really wonderful to hear you say that the cities are committed. And then we all in this room totally understand why people are saying they can't guarantee that the finalists will be implemented. But it would be great to know that something was being realised from the winning entries. Quite often, the winners of architectural competitions, for some reason or another, the final winning design isn't implemented. And I know from all the finalists in the Finnish Hippostalo competition last time, everybody was really emotionally invested in their project and had spent many late hours kind of fine-tuning it. And it would be great to know that there was even a symbolic gesture to have 100,000 euros or 10,000 euros or whatever it is to test one element of the winning design. Because quite often nothing happens, and it's a frustrating part of entering architectural competitions.
Yeah, when it comes to the specific nature of each of the 6 competitions commitment and what it is if you talk about monetary or other things or commitment. I think you have better to ask the project owner of each competition very specific about their plans and so on, because I can't go through all of them here now. But for example, I heard myself today, Oslo, speaking about that the solution, the winning solution of Tygvelie Plus will be something that if I understood you rightly, that is something that you would like to use in other places in Oslo. You say yes or no to that? if you are good enough. Yeah. So that is a big opportunity. So yeah.
Can I just make? So I think that's the idea. Is that it might be. So if there was some solid commitment, however how small, some solid commitment to implement something. If it's a smart home innovation, then you test it in one home. I think from the feedback I've had from the previous competition, you get much more higher quality input, because people then know they've brought the discussion forward. No matter how small, they're guaranteed to have brought the discussion forward. And no one is asking a commitment to do the winning entry in its entirety, but to guarantee to do something.
Well, I think that is the answers for all 6 competitions when it comes to how they want to communicate their commitment is for them to answer. I can't answer for the 6 competitions in details. But since I have been working quite tightly with all 6 competitions during quite a long period now, I know that they are committed. And I would be very surprised myself if the winning solution is good and then nothing happens. That would make me very surprised, personally.
At least now we have suggested that they do something.
Yeah, and this is a recommendation from to the competitions. Yes. Yeah.
And now, I'm sorry, we have to end this session as well. It happens every time today that when we have sessions, it's too short, and we have to prepare for landing this discussion. Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
But I would like the guys up here to give your final remark of what have you heard today. Is there something new coming up, insights you got confirmed, or things you just want to share before we leave this room? I would like to start with you, Peter, if that's okay.
Yeah. When you talk about sustainability, I think it's important to realize 3 dimensions of that word: ecological sustainability, economical, and social sustainability. And what I've heard today, I think you stress more on social responsibility and sustainability than I've heard before. That's one thing I want to comment on. And I think perhaps I should just finish by saying all these problems we see around and all these decisions that have to be made, one thing is important to remember, and it is that we are committed. And if we are committed, we can make other people committed. Because there's a change factor in that. So what I want to say is we are committed leaders of transformation. And if we take that responsibility, we can make Kristina's dream come true. 2020, 2030, a lot of things would have happened. Which doesn't mean that there will not be problem at that time. But that's for next generation to take the lead on.
Thank you, Peter. Mary?
Well, what was emphasized today for me and should be in the minds of all the competitors and all the participants in this is that need for collaboration in ways that we haven't thought about. I think what's happened, and the question about the developability and all that is an indication, and the answer in Hamburg is an indication that the old-fashioned ways of the division of labor between who does what in the city, who creates the amenity and services, who delivers the housing, who does different parts, has to change. And to notice that in order to develop a product of city that will be really, really attractive and appealing, you have to have those partnerships. So the developer needs some security, and it comes to the question up above, some security that there is enough going on with the commitment of the government that they're prepared to make their private investment. By the same token, the government needs to feel that the proposal is strong enough in the marketplace that the private sector will come on board as well. But really, together they can produce the product. The best developer of the world will have trouble producing a great school system. But the government can produce a great school system, but it doesn't have to in a certain place if it doesn't want to. So once you find a set of objectives that can be broadly adopted across a lot of interests, and then decide who's going to do what in that particular case and put together those partnerships, I think you get a much stronger result and a more holistic result. And I would commend all the people thinking about their project to think about how they can come together with government, with other citizens, because a lot of solutions nowadays are community-based solutions. They're not really government or developer solutions. But how can you all come together to be able to bring forward something that would just have that wow factor in terms of being the kind of place that people not only would want to live, but know that when they live there, they're not damaging the environment, and they are creating economic opportunity.
Thank you, Hanna?
Yes, I'm very happy to come here today and experience and learn that there are so many committed investors. And of course, we looked at this also when we chose the cases, because there were also other interesting projects. But we looked at this if this was could be realized. On the other hand, I think it's important also to dream in this kind of process, and maybe it's more, we can, if two of the projects maybe is not realized, I think for my sake I would not be so sad if it's really, really good ideas that has come up. And I think it's that's a factor in architecture or this kind of innovative competitions, that we should also allow ourselves to be a little wild and maybe come up with something that is not just is simple just to realize. But, yeah.
Thank you, Hanna. A little wild dreaming. Gieselher.
I walked through all of the 3 rooms of today, and I was really impressed about the atmosphere. All of you sat in smaller or larger groups, and it was a very serious discussion, obviously. So nobody ran out. That was no, after 20 minutes finished. It was a really, you could have done this discussion for 1 hour longer. I'm sure about that. With all the results, of course, I don't know at the moment, but with all the seriousness and open-mindedness to live in a new structure, because Kristina said it this morning, and it is true. There is no example, as I know, at least in Europe, which shows this process which you're in. And this is, of course, an experiment. And sometimes maybe the result is not as announced. Maybe it is better even than it was hoped. And you're the participants. You can say, yes, we are in this process. We do it. And from an outside perspective, Larry and me are both not in the Nordic countries. I think this is an export article.
Okay. Well, what I take with me from what I've seen so far today is, for example, a Swede running around looking for a Danish architect. And I get so happy about this. I mean, that's what I wanted to see. So can you find me a Danish architect? I will do what I can. Because I have to have a Danish architect to solve this. I mean, that is what I was hoping for. And so I think there is... in this thing that we are doing now in an experimental and very new thinking way. I think for myself it has a wow factor what we are doing today, as Larry said. And I also would like to point out that when we talk about commitment and what's in it for us to compete, we will, Nordic Innovation, we will visualize all the finalist solutions. I said that this morning and I say it again, and we did that for, and still do that for the other project, the Nordic Build project with the houses. And it's Larry said that, and sometimes you don't believe it, but if you go abroad to Paris or wherever, it's a huge interest for those solutions from the Nordic Build project at a high level, and the participants there, they get a lot of goodwill. Yeah.
By the way, I want Canada to join the Nordic countries.
Yeah, you're welcome, Larry.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to thank you very much. I'm very inspired, and I hope that you are too. It has been great. And to thank you for your time. You have got this brand new book coming from Nordic Innovation with the 330 buildings who live up to the charter.
This is an export article.
Yeah, it's an export article.
We had it in Paris for 3 weeks ago with the French Minister of Environment, and all the Nordic ministers were there, and it was a huge success. And this is the example from the former competition. And we will make something like this for the finalists in this competition also, and travel the world.
So, thank you. Should we give them a big hand?